So,
So,
Mitaki, oh yes, and all my relations, hello, this is Mark Still. This is my second conversation with how to fix what's ailing America. Back when I was so many times in my youth, and I'll probably do it again, it used to be every once in a while I would meet a group of people at a camping site and we would sit around the campfire and we would solve all the problems of the world. And then, no one listened to us. So what we're doing today is with these conversations, we're going to hope to at least give some guidance to solving the problems. And since we're recording this, that means some people are going to listen to us. So getting into the second conversation, this is with my beloved friend, Sahr. I will let him introduce himself to you. So take it away, Sahr.
so greetings, friends, to all my relations also. And thank you, Mark, for having me be part of this series of dialogues. My name is Sahr, Abu, and where should I start?
Well, I don't know. You want to tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a very interesting guy, I guess.
Oh, he's intensely interesting. I admire Sahr very, very much.
I'm a citizen of the world. I was born in Sierra Leone. I'm from Sierra Leone, West Africa, and spent my formative years there, and been in the United States for quite a bit now, over 20 years plus. And I live on the East Coast, right outside of Philadelphia. I live in Wilmington, Delaware. Wilmington, which is right down the street from Philadelphia, right down the house. And I'm a healer. I'm an instructor, teacher, yoga instructor, yoga practitioner, and that is my vocation. That is my profession, and really dealing with the healing arts and sciences and pushing myself in that direction to help people achieve optimal health. I'm also a professional actor and director. So that's where Mark and our friendship developed when we were doing storytelling in Philadelphia, a place called Historic Philadelphia in Center City at the end of the Historic District, which was 10 years ago, actually.
I know, years. Man. Jeez.
2010 is when that summer we met. Exactly 20 years ago, actually. So, wow. 10 years of friendship.
Yeah, 10 years of solid, good friendship. Sahr has enriched my life. I'm the person who believes that every single encounter in my life, I think Sahr believes the same thing. Every single encounter in my life should enrich my life, and I should use every encounter to enrich the people that I meet, and use the experience, the stories, the anecdotes of those people I meet, and bring them to others. And it's just this ever growing circle of growth and love and purpose. But of all the people I've met in my life, and I'm not flattering you, Sahr, you've had a big impact on me. So I want to thank you.
You're welcome, friend. You're welcome. Indeed.
Sahr and I talked about what we were going to talk about, and I asked him if we could spend this dialogue speaking about. I guess we didn't actually boil it down to a sentence or two, but there's this big push going on right now from the progressive left, which is saying this is what a good person looks like. This is what a bad person looks like. So, for example, if you're a black progressive, if you are legitimately black, if you're a black conservative or a libertarian, I know quite a few black folks who say that systemic racism is not the problem. They'll say it's classism. They'll say it's statism. They'll say even though some folks say even though racism is very much a part of American life, They say, so what? Because it shouldn't be used to define them. But any black person who doesn't go along with the progressive line, which is, you've held me down and you must atone for this, is being decried as not legitimately black. And if you're a white person that goes along and says, well, listen to these other black voices, then you're called not legitimately white. You're actually called a racist. And this goes against my very core beliefs. I guess I'm a Christian because I believe in Christ. I say I guess because I was raised Roman Catholic, but I've explored all of the world's major religions and a lot of the minor ones. And I've come back to the idea of Christianity because it's what I'm most familiar with, and it's what I'm most comfortable with. But all of the world's major religions and minor ones, I believe all have the same message in that you take care of yourself first. You realize that you are a child of God, however you define God. Take care of yourself so that you develop yourself. You develop yourself spiritually and emotionally and physically, but primarily spiritually, so that your growth, your light, your perception, your connection to God is something that you spread to everyone naturally. It's just
Exactly.
It's how we're born. It's how we're made to be. So the idea and the story of Christ is, when he came along, there were the Jews, and then the Jews said, well, there's everybody else. There's the Romans, this was the Samaritans, the Gentiles, blah, 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 and they are not good enough. And Christ said, no. We're all from the same family. We all have the same Father. We're all good enough. Christ came to banish those man-made barriers. So
exactly.
Question I have, Sahr, this is a heck of a question to begin with. And you can tell me if it's legitimate or not. Can you define blackness?
Wow. That's a heavy question, loaded question there. Can I define it?
Yes. If you can't, you can't. But I really want to know how you feel.
No, I don't think that can be. I don't think you can define. I don't think you can define. Even within certain communities, even within a community that a person shares perhaps commonalities, whether it be ethnicity or skin tone or religion, phenotype, you have differences. You know, you have uniqueness, even if there's something that's shared amongst certain peoples. So defining the term blackness, that can mean something totally different for somebody else who lives in the United States, as opposed to someone who lives, in Australia or somewhere in East Africa or somewhere in Europe.
Right.
Even though they're part of a diaspora.
Yes.
Based on phenotype or based on, an ethnicity or a so-called race. There's huge. You have huge amount of layers of variation and difference, even within one family.
Amen, brother.
Of people who share similar qualities.
Yes.
One being phenotype.
One of the things I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. So I'm not going to spend time trying to define blackness or define the black experience, because that's different for everybody.
One of the things
my experience.
One of the things I've noticed throughout the years is that again, there's so many different variety of opinions and backgrounds and belief and conclusions, but there's just a chasm of behavioral of behavior and thought between Africans and African Americans.
Yes.
Does that sound legitimate?
Am
I right in that observation?
That's legitimate. Yeah, that's legitimate.
So,
and
so the whole idea of saying, I mean, Joe Biden said this recently, right? He said,
yes.
he said, if you don't vote for me, if you don't know enough to vote for me, you ain't black. He actually said that. And the whole idea that somebody gets to define, they want to define them. You should define yourself.
Exactly.
You should. You have to, so you know your purpose in this world. But if you're going to define somebody else, that just goes against everything I believe about humanity.
Yeah. Yeah. What Joe Biden? Wow. What he said was quite off the rails. What he said, he's kind of almost saying, he's kind of basically adding insult to injury, because he's saying within the United States, he's basically saying, because he's saying within the United States, the populist electorate who are considered African American, overwhelmingly have been voting Democratic for the Democratic Party over the past 50, 60 years. And he's in his own mind saying that, well, this is what I'm used to. I'm used to the African American community.
Bam. Recording. Okay, so
Right.
Sahr and I lost our connection, and we are both in. I will return the floor back to Sahr. He was talking about Joe Biden, and how. Well, go ahead, Sahr, please.
So I was just saying, although what Joe Biden said was very absurd and outrageous, outlandish about not being black if you don't vote for him, I understand his mindset. I understand his psychosis when it comes to that, because as ridiculous as it sounds, as absurd as it sounds, he, being a career politician in the Democratic Party, is accustomed to people who are in the African American community. He is used to them voting overwhelmingly for the Democratic Party over the past 60 years now. So in his own mind, that makes sense to him because he's accustomed to that. So as ridiculous as it sounds and as absurd as it sounds, I understand why he said that. Why, even though it was not very tactful, not very, not a very diplomatic way of going about things, but he said it because he has, in his mind, there's truth to that because of what he's accustomed to as far as the electorate is concerned, and voting over the years in his own state of Delaware, where I live, and nationally as well. Yeah, so it's much more than that, as far as I think what was interesting is, though, that there's so much pandering going on from, for example, the Democratic Party to get votes, and even things as absurd as Joe Biden saying what he said. There's some kind of, in a weird way, some kind of truth to that because of the voting records and how people, in urban areas or particular areas, vote the same way all the time, and there are no results. Nothing changes, and I'm not sure if they don't know, people don't actually want change, or they don't have any other alternatives, or they're not really demanding that the people that they put into office really represent them. They're not. Some people may say they're not buying the vote in a way. They're not making sure that their demands are met, at all costs.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of off the beaten path, but talking about politics. But yeah, I think, yeah.
So,
Biden has said some kind of absurd things, but sometimes they're Freudian slips in a way. Some of his absurd, meanderings and absurd gestures and are sometimes Freudian in a way, in a sense.
I have to agree. So with you using words like absurd and Freudian and psychosis, then I can legitimately say that you view this whole mindset as unhealthy.
Yes, very unhealthy, very dysfunctional.
Okay.
It's a very dysfunctional relationship. It seems like in America, there's a very dysfunctional relationship between the electorate and those who represent the electorate. The people, the body politic, and those who represent the electorate in high places of office, going from the very local level, municipal level, all the way to the state level, to the national, federal level. It's a very dysfunctional relationship. It's like, I don't think people pay attention enough to politics. Even in their own communities, local communities, that's where it starts, in your local community, your local, the place in which you live. That's one place you can start to pay attention and be very aware. But, it affects us going from that level all the way up to the federal level. And I think it's almost as if it's somebody, I saw something on YouTube recently. I think it was a comedian. This guy's name's Andrew Schultz. He's a comedian, very funny guy. He's based in New York, and he talked about how when it comes to politics, it's like an abusive relationship.
I haven't heard the routine. I already agree.
Yeah, and and the people, the electorate is like they're being abused, and and they don't know whether they should stay in the relationship or not, or change the dynamics of the relationship, or
Well, conservatives and libertarians especially, of any color, of any demographic background,
mm-hmm.
have been saying for years, for decades, that the way that the Democratic Party treats blacks is abusive.
Yes, they have. And it's very interesting how that shift happened, because that wasn't always the case. I mean, perhaps it maybe changed, more so as far as a change in the vote. Perhaps, I think I would say, starting with the New Deal, starting with FDR, maybe that was the great shift, I think. And then going into the 50s and 60s, LBJ, was Great Society. But yeah, it's. I think it's kind of interesting because you had many thriving communities throughout America, consisting of many people of African descent, indigenous people of African descent, who were very, very. They had agency. They were very, very independent, and we're very much about community and community economics, and we're thriving. And they were really, really pretty. They were very also giving much to the country as far as ingenuity and ideas and business. And then you had the depression that happened, the great stock market crash, and then the New Deal coming with FDR as he was elected, and he was reelected and elected again and again and again. Which is, that to me, that's very dysfunctional too as well, because you had basically a dictatorship. You had the electorate chose to elect someone for 4 terms. So he would have served 16 years, 4 terms, if he hadn't died and after he was elected the 4th time. And from then on, it seems like the demographic of African Americans in this country, were primarily voting Democratic from that point on.
Right.
And we're kind of like leaving things in the hands of the Democratic Party as far as social change, and there was a lot of pleading going on and planning and kind of like compromises made, and it was primarily through the Democratic Party. And ensuring that these changes will be made by this party, if they were in office, by having them get the vote from this community or this demographic of people. And still, when that happened, nothing changed, even though, okay, we voted for you, and then your party says it's going to make change or help bring progress, yet still nothing happens. It's basically some social programs that happened with the LBJ presidency administration, but that time of progress and wealth and strong communities and strong businesses within the African American community no longer existed.
Right.
Hey, so it's like, what was it worth? What was it worth investing in one party to help you make changes and help and give you progress based on you giving them your vote, if nothing changes? And things got worse. Things didn't get better. So that's why I say it's an abusive relationship, a very dysfunctional, very pathological relationship. That's across the board too.
Yeah, agreed.
Not only dealing with ethnicity or so-called race, but also class too, because
brother, I am so happy to hear you say so-called race, because
yes.
I get tired. I mean, I'm not going to change my mind about it, but I get tired of explaining to people that it's so-called race. There is no race.
It's a term. It's a word. It's a classification.
That nobody can agree on exactly what it means.
Yeah.
There's no scientific basis for it. But anywho, so listening to what you were saying makes me think about Brother Malcolm X, and he said, I don't want your help. No, I'm sorry. I don't need your help, and I don't want your help. The black man should not be going to the white man for help. We need to take care of ourselves. In other words, be self-sufficient.
Yes.
You start with yourself. And,
yes.
And he identifies the black community and the white community, which is something that I really don't believe in. There's the human race, the human community. I understand the different cultures within. One of the things I like to say is be color blinded, but culturally minded. So, I mean, you acknowledge and celebrate the different cultures and backgrounds and experience we've had. And like you said, even within individual families, the experience is different. You celebrate that.
Yes.
When it all comes down to it, it's the human family, it's the human race, it's one community. So,
Yes.
I mean, that's where Brother Malcolm and I differ. But as far as him saying, take care of yourselves, I don't want this dysfunctional relationship. I don't want the
Right.
white folks taking care of me or my people.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
So
There's,
Brother Malcolm,
there's a
Brother
guy.
Malcolm would be. Sorry, go ahead. Brother Malcolm would be considered a libertarian.
Yes,
by many standards.
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a dude on YouTube. He goes by the code screen name Young Ripper 59.
Yeah, I know him. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And
I've seen some
for
of his
anyone
videos.
who's looking for him, there's a difference between Young Ripper and Young Ripper 59. You want the 59. So Young Ripper
59, yes.
59, his name is Eric July, he says anybody who believes that you need to go to the white man or to anybody to take care of yourself, he said, you're fools. Get away from me. I'm not joining you. That's a foolish notion.
Right. It's it takes away, agency. It takes away responsibility and accountability. I mean, to break it down in terms of energy as it pertains to masculinity, and I love this quote I was listening to James Baldwin, and he did an interview with a dialogue with the writer and poet Nikki Giovanni back in 1971. I think it was recorded in London.
Okay.
And he said something very brilliant. I mean, Baldwin is brilliant. I mean, he's very sagacious and very wise and very much a brilliant mind. One of the most brilliant minds of the 20th century. One of the greatest writers of the 20th century. And he said something very, very poignant, and I believe Brother Malcolm would have agreed with him completely. He said, as it pertains to masculinity, he says, a man is not a man if he cannot provide and protect for his family. He said, in this world we live in, a man is not a man, and also a man cannot be a man if he is not able to provide for his family and protect his family. So it goes back to, of course, one taking care of oneself and becoming resolute in oneself and becoming stable in oneself, so he can take care of others. He can provide for others. He can help change things, make the world better for others. But he cannot do that for others if he cannot do it for himself. He cannot start doing that for others if he does not start with himself and create a foundation for himself. And the same thing goes for beyond that, as far as communities. If you have situations where you have men who are not being men, or who are not allowed to be men, or and provide and protect for their family and protect their families, then that will reflect upon that community, and you will see the symptoms of that. And no political affiliation, no political party is responsible for changing that. Is responsible for making that better. It makes no sense for you to rely on someone else to change that for you. For anyone. I'm sure it was the same for people who came, everybody who came through here, whether they came through here, on ships, if they came here and they experienced the transatlantic slave trade, or if they came here as immigrants, it starts with the family first. It starts with the individual first, and then the family. And we cannot rely upon a government, or we cannot rely upon a political affiliation or party to correct that. So yeah. It kind of sounds very libertarian, right?
Very much so.
I mean, I don't claim any political affiliation. I don't say that I'm Democrat or Republican or conservative or liberal or libertarian. But if you hear some of my views, you'll probably think, oh, he must be libertarian. I guess in many ways I am. In many ways, but
yeah, I think a lot of folks would say that about me too. I mean, I have. You just take some jacks and you throw them, and you know they scatter across the floor. So I'm scattered. I've got some views that are very definitely liberal, very definitely conservative, very definitely libertarian. When people ask me what I am, when they want to pin me down to a party or philosophy, I say I'm Mark. Well, I mean, there's no one else exactly like me. I'm Mark.
Yeah,
you know?
True. Exactly.
So I know you're getting. I know you're going to have to leave soon. I want to ask you one more thing along these same lines, and I really want to thank you. This has been a really deep discussion. Thank you. Along the same lines of providing for ourselves, providing for our families, taking care of the community.
Exactly.
There's this. I was about to say the word conversation. The only people having conversation right now, I think, is me and you, and then anyone else I invite to this. There's this push at the idea that all police are bad. That, I mean, we've all had run-ins with bad police, myself included. And I've even known, as I mentioned in my last conversation yesterday, that there was police out and out murder of family, a family that's a friend of mine. One of their family members was killed by the police, and they just kind of swept it under the rug and do any investigation. You know, I want you to investigate it. 5 minutes later, we investigated. I'm sorry, we've had no new leads. Case is closed. That kind of thing. So the family never got closure on that. A white family. So you know, we've all experienced this, and I've personally experienced police that were just jerks and on power trips, but I've also experienced a lot more good police. Many more good police, and I know of families that, you know, the kids decide from childhood this is their dream, and they work toward it. And sometimes it's generational. This is something. Excuse me. This is something to be proud of. This is something heroic. This is something noble. And now, the monologue, not the dialogue. The monologue is all police are bad. It's dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. So when my wife pointed out to me that Rolling Stone said something about all police are bad, get rid of all police shows, don't have any media depiction of an officer as a good person, just don't do it because the writer said that's dangerous. And all I'm thinking is, see, the progressives play this zero-sum game. They do this thing where they say, they identify a bad person, and then okay, fine, get rid of all these bad people, and then they start saying, well, now you're bad, and now you're bad, and the number of and the percentage of acceptable good people, quote unquote, gets smaller and smaller until there's nobody left. So you got the Rolling Stone reporter saying all police are bad because so many other people are saying it, but let's say we get rid of all the police. The Rolling Stone writer said all the police are bad. They represent all that's bad about society. But that just means that eventually police are gone. Someone is going to identify the Rolling Stone offices as part of the problem. They're going to say that Rolling Stone represents, I don't know, white supremacy. They're going to represent the problem, whatever the problem is. You know, identify the media that and the collective of acceptable people gets smaller and smaller. The idea that the idea of the Rolling Stone writer saying that that writer is setting herself up for somebody targeting her, and she losing what she feels, what she holds valuable. There have been so many people. I mean, I know of people in Philadelphia that their businesses, and in some cases their homes, were actually attacked by the rioters, burnt down, and they lose everything they have. And guess what? They didn't have insurance. You had this
Right.
insane monologue saying, well, they have insurance, so it's not violence, it doesn't count. Yeah, it counts. And even if you do have insurance, the idea that you're going to get your claim settled in a timely way, and then the insurance rates are going to go up for everybody, including the urban community. So forgive me, I'm ranting.
The next crisis, my friend, is hyperinflation. That's our next crisis.
Yeah.
Then things will really hit the fan then.
So how do you feel about this whole thing about all police are bad and that the police departments need to be abolished?
I don't agree with it. I don't think I mean, it'll be the reason why we need police is because humanity is dysfunctional.
Yes.
So there's a purpose and reason for there being police. I mean, hopefully there'll come a time when humanity has progressed where we won't need police. You know what I'm saying? Though we won't need to have, because we'll be progressed enough spiritually, I should say, that there will be no need for there being a separate entity to correct wrongs, because wrongs won't be made.
Let me jump in.
However, we don't live in that world.
Yeah, let me jump in here. That's the reform we need. We need to grow spiritually. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Exactly.
And we're getting further and further and further away from that, and witness the results.
Exactly. So, I mean, I have a lot of good friends who are police officers, who are in law enforcement, and who are good people, who are honorable, and who do not abuse their position of power. And that's the thing, if you're in a position as such, being a police officer, you have to honor that role and honor that with responsibility, and having the responsibility of not abusing your power, but doing what is correct, what is right, and serving your community, because the community pays you. The taxpayers, their tax money goes to pay your salary. So that should be honored, and that's the way it should be. You have some bad apples, of course, rotten apples, and they should be corrected by their brothers and sisters who are in the force. If there are some bad apples, they should be corrected by those who are in the police. You know what I'm saying? But totally getting rid of the police and getting rid of a police force, I don't think it's a good idea, because we're not even at a place yet where we can it's kind of like hello. Yeah, it's kind of like the parent who has children, and they give them certain directions or give them certain instructions to not do this, not do that, and when they're gone, after the parent says, okay, we're gonna leave, and the house, you take care of the house, and you know what not to do. We have this, these rules here and that, and they leave, and then the whole issue of integrity comes into place, because the children are either going to do what the parents told them to do or not. And these parents shouldn't have to be in their presence for them not to do what's not correct. So it's like, I'm not trying to say that the police are parents, but human nature is human nature, and we shouldn't have to have police. We should correct ourselves. We should correct our thoughts. It all starts the act before even the action happens. The the condition of moving to action, we should be able to correct our thoughts before we even go into action. So policing ourselves.
Yes.
But not enough people are doing that.
Very few of us are doing
until we get there spiritually, there unfortunately will still be a need for police, or at least having communities police themselves. If you want to minimize that, but still, that's to me, that's not a good idea to just abolish that. Not in these times, and not in this situation. And unfortunately, some police forces in some places have a bad reputation because of corruption, just like in politics.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's the case, and there should, it should correct itself. It shouldn't come to a point where that happens. It should be, it should be an entity that corrects itself, that has its own checks and balances, so to speak. But it is what it is. But I feel that in this time, and with all this going on, and within certain cities too, the amount of crime that's going on in certain cities. The city of Chicago is a perfect example of this, the high amount of crime going on, and minimizing neighborhood watchers or minimizing police and the relationship the police have with the community, and also having communities, the police who are in certain communities reflect that community. You know what I'm saying? And then there'd be a relationship with the police in that community. There's a dialogue, and people understand each other, and they talk to each other in a way that's functional. It's not dysfunctional. And that way you have less incidents. And also they can help, with the community. They can help the people who live in the community bring the amount of crime down by having a good relationship with the police that are there. That's not happening. And there you have, then you have situations that happen like in Minneapolis, where that never should have happened,
Right.
And that's a whole different kettle of fish, because there's stuff that we don't know about that relationship, because apparently those two guys actually knew each other or worked in the same spot, and that's not being talked about. But Floyd and Chauvin.
What, in the officer?
They worked at a club. They were both security guards at a nightclub in Minneapolis. Yeah, so
I didn't know this.
Yeah, so they actually had a relationship, or they knew they worked, with each other, So that's something that's not even talked about, and I'm sure there's levels to that. There's probably stories within that relationship that we know nothing about right now.
Wow.
So that's interesting. But yeah. So yeah, I feel it's not a good idea. But I understand the reason why people feel the way they feel about minimizing police because of corruption, because what they've seen as far as corruption. So they feel that that we must just totally minimize or abolish or defund, because in their mind they see what has happened, and they feel that a good idea would be just to get rid of it. But the police will not solve the problem. I mean, you still have problems. You still have issues.
Right.
That's not a to me, that's not a very productive remedy. It's not even a creative one.
Yeah.
So
You're absolutely right.
It's based on emotion.
We I don't know if it's so much the human equation, but very much so in America, we just like to have a boogeyman. We like to be able to say, this is the problem. Let's get rid of this problem. Everything will be fine. That's what I was talking about before, about the zero-sum game, diminishing returns. Because once you get rid of that problem, you find out, or once you get rid of that boogeyman, you find out the problem's still around. So you identify some other group. That's the problem. You get rid of them, and boogeyman's still around.
Yes.
So, the group gets smaller and smaller until there's just about no one left.
An excellent point you made, and the reason why that is because the symptoms are being addressed, but the root cause is being ignored.
Yes.
So hence the boogeyman, because you want to address the symptoms of the issue and not going back to the actual origin, the root cause of it, addressing that. You're in denial of that, but you want to address and try to remedy all these symptoms, but you're not addressing the root cause. So until that happens, you'll still just have, symptoms coming up again and again and again until, there's a big mess.
Yeah, there are very much symptoms that need to be addressed in urban communities, very much symptoms that need to be addressed in suburban communities and within, say, whites, blacks, Latinos, whatever. But again, it's easier, and as far as I'm concerned, a little cowardly to say, boogeyman.
Exactly. It's easy.
I'm down with the idea that there are simple solutions, but the simple solution is you develop yourself spiritually.
Exactly.
That's what you got to do.
That's the work. People don't want to. Mark, you just said it. You just hit it on the nail. The work. That's where the work comes in. Many people don't want to do the work.
which was me for a long time. I was just beginning to realize that I had to do the work when you and I met. Just beginning. And then I threw myself into it. Starting about, I don't know, 6 years ago. That's when I first started throwing myself into it. So I was just shy of 50. I'm not proud that it took me so long to do it, but the fact of the matter is I did it. That anyone can find redemption. Anyone.
Exactly.
But it's work. it's work.
A conscious choice.
Brother, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome, my friend. Thank you. Thank you very much for.
We need to do this again because I'm considering the idea of making this sort of a weekly or bi-weekly thing. I may even make it a podcast eventually.
Yeah, man.
We'll talk about all sorts of things.
Yeah, I dig it, man. This is necessary. This is needed. This is yes, more than ever.
I am thinking that I will get this posted tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll keep you informed. Cool. Should I link you too so that it shows up on your site too?
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay. And it's going out to Instagram and Twitter too, and YouTube.
Okay. So I'm on, of course, Facebook. I'm on Instagram, and also I'm on YouTube. So I can provide you with information for that.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you.
All right, my brother.
And my everybody yesterday, when I was doing the interview yesterday, I was thinking, because I open up with Mitikai Oyesin, all my relations, that's become my established beginning, my opening. And then when I got to the end of the interview, I'm thinking, I have an established ending, but I forgot what it is. And so reminded me, peace, 4 fingers.
With 4 fingers. Yes. Hey,
God bless you.
I love that.
Thank you. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for being my brother. Thank you for your continued inspiration.
Likewise, my brother. I appreciate you. Love and gratitude deeply.
Love and gratitude deeply. I will
to all my relations.
See you, everyone.
Bye-bye.